The hill up above Uncle Albert's home, and we're going to the cemetery where he's buried. So
I guess that's Tammy's mobile home there across the street.
Oh, right there, yeah. And
anybody down there that wouldn't wave to?
Yep, there's still plenty of people.
Okay, so the cemetery, that gated area is the cemetery, huh?
Go up here and turn around. They can't see the car from
Whoa!
We'll wave at them from the... Well, we came up through a field.
Oh my goodness. Boy, I wish I had a camera. My film, somehow the film is...
Somebody else started one over there. That must be bowling.
Yep. Are they the ones that live next door?
So they're the only ones up here then, huh? What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is their land or what?
Mm-hmm.
Dad had a sister that was never married, but she had
84.
a daughter.
Else
And,
71.
You said you're, what now? Start again. Your dad was what?
had a
It's interesting that they add little markers here for mother and father at the foot of the stone.
1908. He's older
So
than me.
who was he? I'm not sure. You just said there was a man who came
well,
down
there
there.
was just a man, and he lived right down there.
Oh, okay.
Not in that
Buddy
house,
Albert.
of course, but
I don't know how he could
an old one there.
put stuff on his back and carry it like he did. Come up that road carrying a sack of feed on his back.
So this is his cemetery,
Once I get it
and
on my back, it's all right.
and then looking down at where we were at the barns and the house and pavilion. Yep. And his old work shed there. There's the house.
So the farming took place up here.
Yeah, I don't remember this part ever being farmed, but on the top of the hill where it was wild.
He always had cattle in here. I mean, when he had his spirit farm, dairy farm.
So before Dad died, he divided the farm. All of this was one, but just right down somewhere beyond where the house is now, he divided it straight up the hill and gave this part to Albert, and the rest of it went to Bertie and Emily.
Oh.
Because they had supported us most of our lives, and Albert managed the farm. If I could yell hard loud enough, I'd yell
Huh. So who you said Uncle Albert got this half, and he divided it in 3 or in 2?
He gave Albert a third of it, and the rest of it went to Virgie and Emily.
Now, would all those trees have been there? Or
No,
would that?
no.
So that it would have been totally open.
Yeah. It was a pasture.
Who owns
This
the
is
land
now
across the
looking
road?
down towards
Or that wasn't part of your land then, was it?
No, I'm not sure.
That all this
where Mom's
land
house
right
would have
there.
been, and that all of this up here was.
Yeah. Had plenty of land, but they run way on down to where we said Willie lived. The land. See, all this in here was for your cows and things, and hogs.
That's right where that.
They had hogs, cows, and mules. They didn't have no cows. You had mostly mules, didn't you, Juanita? You did.
I don't think
So that would be some. Is that who's?
that belongs to Charles' son.
No, I think he was talking about when you grew up, what animals you had out
We
here.
had 2 mules.
2 mules. Jim had a mule.
So what was the favorite part about living here?
Well, we didn't know any other thing.
When I walked down to the other house earlier to take pictures and was kind of talking out loud, trying to wonder what it was like, you know, spending your whole time either walking down to school or walking up to the church, and not going away very often to town or anything. Trying to picture you and Aunt Lorraine running around and getting in trouble together.
Well, we were pretty good kids. We had a good upbringing.
Yeah.
So how describe your dad as a person?
Well, I never knew Dad when he could stand up straight and do a day's work. He was so crippled up with arthritis. I'm sure what is known now as rheumatoid arthritis. And he was bent, when I knew him, he was bent from here over. And as he got worse, well, he walked, the last that he walked with 2 canes.
Was he about like Uncle Albert?
Now, Albert had the same thing on, his was in his shoulders, and he was bent,
bent.
from here.
From the top up. But
The
so
waist
Grandpa
over.
was bent even more.
Yeah, like that.
Uh-huh.
And he talked to you with
And then Dad
the inside.
fell, and I think he knocked a knee out of place and broke his arm, and he never walked again.
He didn't let that back hurt him, though.
Oh,
come
I'm
up-
sure.
Rode with a sack of feed on that back. I'd say, you
Once
shouldn't
he
do
was-
that. He said, once I get it on my back, I'm okay. Here he'd keep walking plumb up from that
He
little
was a
store up.
hard worker.
So I hear he was a good storyteller.
Dad was, yes.
Okay. What other things, talents do you have?
Well, as I say, I never knew one. He was a great reader. He loved to read. And I think that's why we got the lighting system in the house. I don't know. Probably you've not heard that. It was, they dug a great big round hole and put some sort of a tank down in there. And you put water in the bottom, and it had some sort of a contraption that had carbide in it. And that water hitting the carbide would form gas, and that was piped into the house. We had lights in the ceiling. And one night the lights got faint, a flickering light, and Dad was concerned he couldn't see to read. And without even thinking, they went out there with a lit lantern and opened that thing, and it exploded. And there's Dad and Mother was both burned bad, and my sister Ruby that died, she was burned pretty bad, and she and Virgie both were seniors in high school, and they said that she went back to school too soon, and her classmates, well, the ones that knew her best, would help her with her lessons and all, and then she had a stroke, and she lived, I believe, about 6 months when she died, but she did graduate.
Now, do you remember that, or you just?
Yeah, I remember the explosion. Somebody asked me the other day if it hurt our house, which it didn't. And Lauren and I were standing just inside the fence. That tank was outside the fence. We were standing back a little ways from the fence, and I think our hair was singed a little bit, but some of them were hurt, and Ruby was burned pretty bad.
So you were real little.
Yeah, it was quite small.
So what about your mother? What memories do you have about her?
Well, I don't remember exactly. She was burned, I think, around the face and her arms and all.
Okay.
And it was quite a time. Of course, there was no doctors around. Just did what you knew to do for burns. And Ellen was in it, and Albert was present. As I remember, they said Albert was bent down over that tank, so the flames didn't hit him as bad.
So it could have been a lot worse. You felt real fortunate.
But
so Ruby's the one who really was the most affected?
Yeah. But they thought that just going back to school and studying hard and everything to graduate probably was a big strain on them.
Yeah. So what other things can you tell me about your mom?
Well,
You probably didn't say mom.
Mammy and Pappy. Well, she was a homemaker, just taking care of us.
Does she have any particular talents you can remember?
Nothing outstanding that I think.
So your dad was a reader, and what did she like to do?
Well, wasn't really a lot to do. Well, the two of them just kept us together with the help of Virginia with teaching school and supporting us. And as I say, Albert, he wasn't the best farm manager in the world. This man that lived down here could talk Albert into a lot of things. And, he wanted us to farm on his land. And as I remember, you had to not only do the farming, you had to furnish half whatever it took to farm. Or if we'd have put it, we could have probably what the girls had to spend on fertilizer, seed, so forth. If we'd have put it into this land and had everything for ourselves.
Would have done a lot better.
Yeah.
I heard he was pretty bossy. Aunt Lorraine told me that.
Well, yeah, he was.
Who?
Uncle Albert.
Oh.
Tell the story about the newspapers. Remember you, in Saline, you told me about, I asked about whether the family read a lot.
Well, Virgie and Emily, being teachers, being more educated, they saw advantage of having reading materials around. And we had a daily newspaper delivered by mail, and we had magazines such as Look, which was more a picture.
Mm-hmm.
Can't think
Picture
of-
magazine.
Yeah, and then we had Life magazine,
Go away.
and
It's her turn.
some of the best magazines, reading material. They saw that we had.
So how did your day go? That's what I found interesting.
Oh, you mean we'd go out and work half a day and come home to eat and rest a while, and that's when we read the paper. So there'd be certain part. They had a serial, and we always read that first probably, and just go through the paper and read it.
Did you have to go back in the field then?
Oh yes, and in the afternoon we went back. And I've always thought that's where where my heart attack started coming on, because our breakfast was biscuits and gravy and eggs.
But didn't you wear it off working?
I'm sure we did. And then in summertime, our lunch would be green beans and potatoes and cornbread, and very little meat in our lunch. And then dinner would be the same thing. Mostly what we raised.
So during the Depression, did you ever have to go where you didn't have anything to eat, or
Well,
didn't have 3 meals a day, or?
the only thing we knew about, and that we were never part of, they had what they called the poorhouse, and people who really couldn't do anything, they had to live at the poorhouse, which now would be, well, I don't know what kind of place it would be now, where people go for help,
Like a soup kitchen?
something like
Or like
that.
a homeless center?
Yeah.
Could people actually stay there?
Oh, yeah.
And that was part of what I think you said earlier, trying to keep you all together so that none of you had to go to somewhere like that.
If it hadn't have been for Virgie and Emily, and I don't think they would know what it was to keep $1 for themselves. Of course, they had, wherever they stayed, they'd have to pay rent.
Aunt Lorraine told me once that, I asked her about the bonding, why the Lane family, everyone was, you could feel a sense of bonding. And she says because you all survived together running the farm.
Yeah, that's right. That's the way it was. That was life.
What kind of games did you play? Aunt Lorraine said you used your imagination a lot for entertainment.
If there'd have been a deck of cards, it wouldn't have been allowed in our house. But we'd cut up cardboard and put numbers or something and play it. It would now be known as a card game, but because it was not.
Didn't have those face cards.
Yeah.
What, like matching games?
Yeah.
Matching numbers?
Uh-huh.
Sort of like Old Maid or...
Yeah. And let's see, what else did we? Our playhouses would take a place like this and take rocks and build around it and separate it into rooms and
Out here on the land somewhere?
well, around the house somewhere.
Okay.
No, not out like this.
But around the house.
Our toilet facilities was an outhouse.
Who did the quilting? I know you've talked about that before.
Well, Mother, of course, was the head of it, and anybody that was big enough to use a needle. I learned to sew. Now, as long as Emily was at home, she did all of our sewing. We picked blackberries and sold them, and ordered material from Sears, from the catalog, and Emily would make our clothes. But then when she started staying at Mary's more, because Pat was there, I learned to sew. But I learned to sew, had an old treadle sewing machine, and of course we had to buy feed for the cows anyway, the cows that we milked. We'd use those sacks, and we'd make, I first learned to sew making sheets out of those feed sacks. And I even learned to make our underwear out of the same thing.
Well, I heard that a sewing machine was a very protected piece of equipment.
It had to be. Lauren and I were talking recently, and she heard me say I learned to sew. She says, I never was allowed to sew.
Yeah, that's why I heard from her that it was a very protected piece of equipment.
Oh,
So
So,
there's what, 2 years between you and Aunt Lorraine?
2.5 or close to it.
so where were products sold? Once things were harvested, or
Well,
where was the market?
The only harvesting that was done was a tobacco crop. Everything else mainly was,
oh, you ate, the family ate.
yeah.
Okay. So tobacco was the only money crop.
Yeah. And it didn't bring, by the time it would be sold and get the money, it was owed to somebody. The little store, that not the one that the building's there now, but another one that the same man run the store. He kept some dry goods, which is material, you know. So, and he kept some shoes. We'd be able, what shoes we bought, we could get them there. And well, all of the food staples came from there. Mother would, we grew up on skim milk mostly, because Mother would churn all of the cream, or
Oh, the butter.
to have the butter, and of course we used some of it, but if there was even 1 pound of butter to be sold, there was a man that lived across these hills that took stuff to Middlesboro to peddle it. And I walked from here down to where you turn in to come up this hollow, and meet him and take whatever Mother, I don't remember about eggs, maybe some eggs, but mainly butter for him. And he had special customers that wanted Mother's butter.
And then he'd give you the money to bring back then?
And sometimes we'd have him take it. One thing that that they made sure that we had was coffee. Everybody was coffee. So sometimes we'd use that money and bring us coffee. And I don't believe his name was J.V. or Joshua Valentine Grubbs, known as J.V.
Was that the man you said was down there?
That's his son.
His son, okay. Well, what was it like? Was it hard to get through down the road in the wintertime? Does this area get a lot of snow, or?
Well, not a lot, but we missed some school. We couldn't get too deep to
So it was a pretty hard life.
It wasn't, and it was also during the Depression. I guess we were better off
Than a lot of people.
On the other hand, a lot of people had more than we did. I guess it depended on the time.
Probably just a normal life, though, huh? That's what you knew?
You didn't know any different.
You think the family, was your family a pretty happy family?
Oh, I think we were. I can't ever remember a fuss or quarrel between us. But as you said, Albert was pretty stern about the work, you know.
What was your job usually, being one of the youngest ones?
Well, I helped plant corn. Corn was the biggest crop. And of course we had to set the tobacco and take care of it. Then when the corn came in, we had to hoe the corn. And just anything on the farm. And of course we had to, as some of them got older and left, and the younger ones grew up, we always had at least two cows that we had to milk. So Lorraine, me being the last ones, I guess, Ruth, she had eczema so bad that she couldn't be out in the sun or couldn't work at the farm because of the dust. She stayed home mainly. But we got up in the morning, we cooked breakfast, we milked 2, maybe 3 cows, and then we walked to school, then came home, and it was pretty much the same thing.
And went and got water lots, huh?
That's what?
And then went and got water a lot, huh?
Oh, yeah, we carried water from right down there.
How often did you do that?
Well, depending on I thought that Vern will get buckets carrying them, but we managed. A couple times a day or when it was needed.
It looks like our
We've run out of quiet to do this, I think.
So I guess it's time to stop, huh?
Yep. Film's almost out.
Get him.
Dad thinks you're talking too much, Mom. Boy, that's a joke, isn't it?
I noticed he left.
Well, you didn't see him going like you're talking too much. I told him to go away.
Well, it's nice to get these stories.
The reason for that was that it was finally cleared out and made into part of the farmland.
Mom just said that this is across the street from Uncle Albert's, that they farmed some of that up in there too. That clearing up in there.
Oh, I see the fields.
They had blackberries up along through here. We come down from Oak Ridge and pick blackberries.
That's one thing we used to do when we were kids, coming to visit.
We came to another cemetery here in La Follette to find Aunt Pearlie's gravesite.
She's been gone 13 years. That don't seem right.
Now see, I would have guessed that Uncle John died many years earlier than her, but it was only 3.
She had pneumonia, double pneumonia, and she didn't take care of herself. And when she got back home from the hospital, she had to go in and teach. She didn't feel like we was down here.
Well, Aunt Pearlie, I remember you as the funniest aunt.
Do you remember anything in particular?
No, I just remember always liking to go to her house because it was fun.
Yeah.
I don't know what, that's just my memory of her being jovial
Yeah.
and laughing, having a big laugh, and
Yeah, she is.
being the type that would, you know, smile and give you a big bear hug and laugh to be able to see you.
What they gonna put in down there? Something. They're gonna put something big down there.
Pretty flowers.
They got it all fixed up.
So this is near a tree here. Several rows in from those sarcophaguses, just a little bit up from this fireplace looking thing here at the top of the hill. The entrance is way down there, so come pretty much up to the top of the hill. Here in, what's the name of this town?
Jacksboro.
In Jacksboro, you gotta turn right here at the Walgreens and then turn right at the first street to go to the cemetery where Aunt Pearlie's at. Tow String Road. So follow the airport sign there, and then the first street past the railroad tracks to go up to Aunt Pearlie's cemetery.